Hello, welcome to Inclusion Safety. This is our first week, and I am here with Kenna Miller, Alyssa Imes, and Victoria By talk about inclusion safety. I meant to share my presentation at the same time. That's why I had that pause. So I'm George Hanshaw. Work with Kenna, Alyssa, and Victoria in digital learning solutions, where we have an amazing team, and we're all part of that team as well. So we wanted to share with you about inclusion safety today and all the reason why it's important and how to implement it so you have practical skills. So I want to let Kenna introduce herself first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kenna Miller, and I'm a senior instructional designer here at LAPU. Like George said, we all work together here on our team, and I'm really excited to talk a little bit about inclusion safety today.
Now, Alyssa, how about yourself?
Hello, my name is Alyssa Imes, and I am an instructional designer here at LAPU. And I am also very excited to jump into inclusion safety with you all.
Vic?
And hello, I'm Victoria By. I'm also an instructional designer at LAPU. And like the others have said, it's very exciting to be here, and we'll dive into the world of inclusion safety with you.
Awesome. Well, here we go. Well, so let's start from the very beginning then. Inclusion safety satisfies that basic human need to connect and belong, whether at work, school, home, or other social settings. Everyone wants to feel that acceptance. Everyone wants to be accepted. In fact, the need to be accepted, I love this part, this is my favorite part, precedes the need to be heard. And that came directly from Tim Clark in Leader Factory. What are some thoughts about that preceding the need to be heard, or any other part about it? One of my biggest things is that precedes the need to be heard. So what that tells me is that if we have to be included before we'll completely be ourselves at work and give all that we have to give to the team, to the organization, whatever it may be. So if we're not included, we're holding back.
Yeah, I agree. The need to be included comes before being heard, and that's just relatable. When you meet a new group of people, you want to feel like you're included before you even begin to speak. So the heard part kind of isn't there until you feel included within that group.
Yeah, I agree as well. And like Alyssa mentioned, if that feeling of being included isn't there, then likely, you're not going to be living up to your fullest potential, or even really be yourself or feel as comfortable as you could be in these situations. And like it says, whether at work, school, home, or in other social settings, everyone does just want to feel included as they enter into these new settings or go somewhere that may be unfamiliar to them. So I think that definitely is the first want for human beings as they go into these situations, and inclusion safety definitely does kind of encapsulate that.
Yeah, definitely. Just bouncing off what everyone has said, it's without inclusion safety, we keep up the wall, and we want to get rid of that metaphorical wall, whether it's anywhere, wherever there's a group setting. We are human first, so people first, and then process. With the wall up, there's only so much that our voice can go, and that's where it's people connection first, and then speak out and be heard.
Oh, I love that. People over process. We say that a lot in our team. People over process, because really our number one job as designers is to build relationships. And if you don't include somebody new to the team, if you don't practice inclusion safety, then you're never going to build that relationship and create that people over process sort of mentality. Great points. I think that's really powerful, because I know I've worked in places where you had to wear a mask. Basically, I think of it like wearing a mask. So you only show one particular side of who you are, or something to that effect, and it's really evident when people have to hold back. It is. But that's cool. So let's dive into the neatest part for me here is where it says inclusion in exchange for human status in the absence of harm. So this is really the only stage of the 4 stages that's really a basic human right. It's somebody's, people have the right to be included. It's not earned. And that's pretty cool, because inclusion in exchange for human status and the absence of harm. So the only time we can't really give that inclusion safety is if there's an intention to do harm of some type. And then our shared goal. So why do we want to really create inclusion safety? And really just because it's the first stage of psychological safety, but we also have some shared goals where when you have inclusion safety, that's the start of creating that incubator of innovation and that sanctuary of inclusion. So when people feel that, they're really they feel as though they can wholly come to work. And when they wholly come to work, wow, amazing things happen. Have you noticed that in any situations?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel like on our team, we have a lot of psychological safety. And because everybody feels that they can be their genuine and authentic self and that they are included on our team. And I know we'll get into some of the other stages later, but specifically for this one, just because they feel included and that they're able to come to work and be themselves and share ideas, I really do see that both of these goals are met. And that we are very innovative and we are a sanctuary of inclusion, just because everybody can show up and be themselves and they're not afraid of repercussions of being wrong or not feeling like they're included.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That's really a big thing, isn't it? Because
Oh, I'm so sorry. There might have been a lag.
Go ahead, Alyssa.
Okay,
There was a lag.
One of my favorite points that I want to cover is that we all have fear, and we have fear of starting a new job or meeting a new group of people. Think of whatever that circumstance is. But when we can be reminded of inclusion safety, that we have the right to be included, that it's not something we do or earn, that we automatically have that, I think can help take away that fear. So if you ever are starting something new or you have that fear, just remember that you have the right to be included.
I love that point, because when you bring that up, that kind of speaks right to the definition of vulnerability, right? Fear and vulnerability kind of go hand in hand, because in order to be your best, you're going to be vulnerable. So we'll take kind of Tim Clark's definition of rewarded vulnerability and kind of layer that on top of those amazing comments that you just made. So if we're free of fear, then I guess we're free to be vulnerable. And that helps us to really put things out there that may not be fully baked, if you will, that may just be partially baked. And we don't have fear of being ridiculed, things like that. Has anybody worked in an organization where you've been ridiculed for just about anything?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've had, and the only motivation that I had was, okay, my contract is going to end, so I'm just going to work because I signed a contract, and it's the fear of, did I do this right? I don't want to be ridiculed, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. Did I complete my work? Because I don't want to get yelled at, for lack of a better word, get yelled at, get ridiculed, get demeaned. And it was just draining. Going to work is just a chore. And it was draining. And there was just no future or prospect, because as soon as the contract was, it's like, see you later.
Okay, gotta go.
That's like,
that's when you have.
That's a prime example.
When you have that fear.
To do.
Yeah, when you have fear, there's a lot of turnover in those organizations, and turnover costs. Like one time I was a lead in a learning and development area, and the actual manager, so I was under the manager, uh, he ruled with fear quite a bit. And we were always on the edge of failing different inspections from the Department of Defense, things like that. And the moment that that individual retired, left, and then someone else became the director, we went from always being on the edge of failing to being the very top, where the DoD, Department of Defense, was using us as an example of what to be like for a training department. So that kind of speaks to my favorite term: no bad teams, only bad leaders. So that was a real big one there, and it happens in an instance. And then this is my favorite term from Tim Clark: worth precedes worthiness. So to me, that talks about don't judge. Somebody has worth because they're human. That's why we accept them and include them. I know we're going to talk about learner safety, contributor safety, and challenger safety. Those are all earned through trust and respect. But the inclusion safety, your worth is because you're human. You're not being judged. You're not given inclusion safety because of some value of worthiness. Judgment is suspended. And what are some ways that we can suspend judgment?
I think one way to suspend judgment is to just pause and reflect before you respond to people. Because a lot of the time our minds go quicker than our mouth and we can say things we don't mean. So if we can really pause and reflect, maybe take a breath before you respond to something, that will help the person you're talking to not feel judged.
I like that. Pause and reflect.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Alyssa. I was going to say the same thing. Just take a pause and make sure that you're actually listening to the person before jumping to judgments or conclusions before they've even, you've given them that chance to speak with you. Or, whatever the situation is. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're in a dialogue with you, but try to catch yourself too. Because I think a lot of us may make these judgments or have these like preconceived thoughts or notions before we even realize the extent of the situation or know the person or, all of those things. So try to catch yourself and make it a habit of trying not to do that.
So how does it make somebody feel when you pause, when you give that space before you answer? Well, how does that kind of affect them? How does it make them feel?
For me, it makes me feel like what I was saying mattered and that they were really engaged in listening to what I had to say.
Yeah, to add on that, that's another sense of respect for them and for myself when I'm speaking to someone and what I'm saying and portraying is being heard, and that they're genuinely wanting to know me as a person and not just whatever values I have.
Oh, you brought up an important term there, genuinely. I always genuine or authentic. For some reason, I gravitate towards authentic. Like when we build relationships, we have to build authentic relationships. And I guess so when we're offering inclusion safety, that has to be genuine as well, right? Or authentic, because we know when it's not. We know when we're being lied to. It has a different feel to it, or as a lot of people say, it has a different smell to it. Yeah, that's a great point. That is a fantastic point, actually. So make sure that we're authentic and that we honestly believe worth precedes worthiness. Oh, so how do we know when we're included in something? How do we know it's that authentic feel as opposed to, something not authentic, something not genuine, because we do know. My the I was in the Air Force for 8 years, and it they knew exactly how to create inclusion, and that was simply by the patch. I still remember the 90th TAC Fighter Squadron. It was Paradise uh, that you would put on your arm. So whenever you go to a new squadron, you'd have a patch for them, and that automatically meant that you were part of the team. Now, it doesn't mean that you had learner safety, contributor safety, or challenger safety, but you had inclusion because you were part of that team and you had it directly on your uniform where it was. So you had they kept you focused. You had the larger U.S. Air Force on your uniform, the larger unit patch, and then down to the squadron patch, which was your team. And that made inclusion safety very simple, because you might have some fun and give each other some not trouble, but just have fun with each other internally. But when somebody externally tries to pick on or belittle or do something negative towards somebody with the same patch, that gets stopped immediately by the other folks. You're a part of that team, and it was very authentic. And they did that just with a patch. But what are some other ways that we know that we're included?
I would say sometimes it is a physical type of thing. Very similarly, I was in a sorority and we had sorority letters. So, I'm sure everybody's seen them, but you wear it on sweatshirts or shirts or even hats, whatever it is. And that would kind of just show that we are together in this group type of thing. And you do feel included, especially as a new member. There are lots of girls who are older than you, and they will do different things to try to bring you in and make sure that you do feel comfortable and just kind of at home. But I also think that you can feel it from more of an internal sense, like a sense of comfort, or that you feel at ease to be yourself. And there isn't necessarily like a fear that you can't be yourself or that you are not a part of the group that is welcoming you in. So I think it can be both physical and more of like an internal feeling.
Yeah. To add on the physical feeling, the past organization and school I worked with, when I knew I was part of the group, I had my own jersey that said my name on the back, and then grade level and subject. It's like Victoria. It's like Mrs. Well, we went by last name, so it's like Mrs. Body and the English team, the English department, and we would parade around when we had those goofy moments at work. But it wasn't like something I felt like I had to be goofy. It's because I could let go and laugh and get planning done, and we were productive. We got our whatever curriculum complete or whatever decorations or team planning, and it didn't feel like a chore because everyone's like we said earlier, everyone listened to each other. We got to know each other. We are human first, and all our ideas matter. And same here at LAPU. It's not we're virtual, but although we could make our own jerseys, because from day one when I came in, it didn't feel daunting at all. We casually met each other, played games, exchanged quick talks, and when we didn't get the chance to see each other in person, we're included with having a luncheon or in-person work. I lost my train of thought at that time when we're making videos and completing our work in person. It's all our ideas bounce back and forth, whether virtual or in person, and we all mattered. So that's that tingly, bubbly sense that
that really creates that inclusion safety, and that's that first step, because without it, nothing else is going to happen. You're not going to get your learner safety, contributor safety or challenger safety. It's simply not going to happen if it doesn't build off that initial step. Like my son at his university, he's part of the Nikkei Club, and they have what they call bigs. I never heard it called bigs before, but it's pretty cool, and he likes it. But bigs is basically a somebody that's been there for a year or two already in the club, a year or two, and they're their mentor, if you will. So they help with college stuff, with club stuff, and they're just there to be there, and they kind of negotiate back and forth what that relationship is like. So what it is, and it's pretty cool. So that's another way that people can do that as well. So very cool. Inclusion safety. So that's how we kind of know we're included, right? And then how do we create inclusion safety as a leader or as a informal leader? So formal or informal leader. Do any of you have a favorite sort of technique or strategy from the behavior guide, or something that you've found on your own?
I think for me, one of my favorite behaviors would be the act of knowing people's names and remembering them and pronouncing them correctly. So for me, I know if I walk into, let's say, like church, there's a large group of people there. But when I walk in and multiple people say like, "Oh, good morning, Alyssa," that really makes me feel like included, that people know who I am. So that's something that I know I enjoy, but I also know it's something that I need to work on in my own life, where I am really great at remembering faces, but I don't remember names. And because I feel so good when people know my name, I know I need to be better at remembering other people's names.
Oh, good point. What are some other things that we can do?
Personally, for me, I really like the idea of making sure I follow through on tasks. And I'm pretty sure that's one of the behaviors listed in the guide, especially small tasks. And I like to think I'm pretty good at that, but I also think it not only shows respect for the other person, for their time and energy, or, just following through. And if you've given them your word that you're going to do something, I think it's really important to follow through on that. But it also makes sure that the other person feels heard, and that they do feel, especially in the workplace, that they are listened to and that they are heard.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And Vic, what's one of your favorites?
For me, is that along with what Kenna and Alyssa you've said, like addressing your teammates by name, that they're a person, and you remember their name, as well as following through with their task by clear communication, and that you're respectful of themselves and their time, and you're clearly communicating to them what your goal and intentions are, as well as listening to what they're saying to you, to following through with tasks, to get to know, and the communication to understand their side and their point of view and their needs.
Oh, I like that. One of my favorites is Tim Clark. When he talks about giving air cover. So one of each of our individual responsibilities is to give that air cover. In other words, if we've probably all been on a team, everybody listening has probably been on a team where there were personal attacks, and it's important the air cover is to come in and stop when that is happening. Stop those when they're happening, and stop them in a way that is still respectful. You don't come in grumpy and complaining. So that's one of my biggest ones that I like, is make sure there's no personal attacks. And if there are, come in and stop them in a very respectful way that helps to further build a relationship rather than chop it down or anything like that. And I also like, especially in our virtual environment, the little hop on, hop off things that we do. hey, you got a second? Yeah, and we'll hop on for 5 minutes, chat, and then check in with each other, and then move on. I kind of love the way we do that as a team, and we even started doing that with teams outside of digital learning solutions as well, which I thought was very cool. I think was that Ken? Was that your brainchild, or who? That was your brainchild, right? The hop on,
Yeah,
hop
we work together for the coffee times and things like that.
Yeah, coffee time. Just people over process, just to let people know that they matter. And it's so important because they do matter more. Because our organization, I love uh, organizational culture, that shared third culture. An organization is not a thing, it's a group of people. And organizational culture is that culture that's embraced by the people within the organization. So I kind of love that. And you actually help to make that part of the culture here at LAPU, those hop on, hop off, quick coffee time things, because then people started doing it external to even us, which was super cool. And
Yeah,
then
I think.
takeaway. Oh, what's that?
I'm so sorry, George. I just was going to say, I think that also goes to the behavior of deep bonding and connections. And by taking time to meet with other people, you're able to bond with them and make those connections. Those conversations don't always need to be strictly work related. It's nice to get to know the people you're working with outside of work. So we like to talk about maybe your favorite item at Trader Joe's or your favorite coffee. So having those icebreaker questions really helps build connections at work.
Yeah, right. And those connections, those relationships are the biggest thing. So then I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I know there's somebody watching this that says, oh, I don't have time for that. We need to perform. we all know that person, right? We all know that. We all know somebody like that. So why is it so important to build those relationships and have those conversations that may not be work related? What do they do? How would you explain that to somebody who is that I don't have time for that kind of person? What would you say to them?
Coming into a new organization, I've been here like 2 years, but coming into a virtual organization, it's really difficult to make connections, especially outside of your team. So for me, I would say that being able to have those conversations, even if it's just a couple minutes, allows me to feel comfortable when something work related comes up to reach out to that person. But without that connection, I have some fear to do that.
Oh, so that ties right back into that vulnerability that we talked about earlier in that fear. That's very cool. So if you don't have those connections, then you're not going to have that high performance. So if somebody's worried about perform, we need output. If somebody's that's all they think about, then they should have people first, process second, because people are who the performers are, right? Great point. I love that. I'm gonna take that one. I'm gonna steal that idea. Anything else before we dive into the takeaways?
I think it also goes back to you mentioned connection, George. If you don't feel connected, and it's in the lack of better words, you're just a robot chugging away at work. But we're human. All we're doing is just work, perform. You'll head up. Your mind and your body will head towards burnout. And then that will turn the wheel into very high turnover rates too if people are burned out. There is nothing to look forward to. Your team, your manager doesn't see you as any worth, why should you stay?
Exactly. So then that performance goes down. It crashes just like an airplane lost its engines. It's going to have a glide slope down. Were you going to say something, Kenna? Did I interrupt you?
No, you're all good.
Oh, okay. Well, let's dive into the. Nope, we're not covering everything up that way. So let's dive into the takeaways. So what I love is be responsible for creating inclusion safety, regardless of your position. Suspend judgment. Worth precedes worthiness. And the way to do it is ask, invite, share. So it's you taking the first step. So it's our responsibility. I love that saying that I learned in elementary school. When you point a finger at somebody, 3 fingers point back at you. That's the same thing right here. So we have to take individual responsibility for creating that inclusion safety. Yes, we do say no bad teams, only bad leaders, but we all have influence within up the chain of command, down the chain of command, and across the chain of command. So it is our responsibility. What are some thoughts you have about being responsible for creating that inclusion safety, whether you're a formal leader, informal leader, regardless of position? What are your thoughts?
I personally think inclusion safety starts with just one person, and if you can have that initiative to make sure that anybody you interact with does feel safe to be around you, be a part of, your team, if you're at work or in a social situation, that they feel comfortable being themselves or welcomed or whatever the situation is, then I think that all of these things will kind of just have like a trickle down effect. But it starts with one person. And if you go out and do it, it'll make it better for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. So one person can start. That's that pebble in the pond theory where those concentric rings just keep coming out further and further and wider, and it spreads, huh? Anybody else have some thoughts?
I was thinking about how inclusion safety doesn't need to be this large action that happens. It can be small. So the example that comes to my mind is when there's a new member on your team, maybe just reaching out and making sure they have the resources they need, or seeing if they need any help, or just introducing yourself, taking that initiative to make sure that they feel like they're included. And you can also be a person that they reach out to when they do have questions.
Oh, great point. So when we take those small things, it kind of makes people feel more included as opposed to just the big grandeur, I guess, pomp and circumstance, whatever we want to call it. Those little things matter, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. I love that, because when we do those little things, it kind of shows that we care and that we're putting people above the process. I love that. Any final thoughts with suspending judgment or the ask, invite, share mantra that we use?
Yeah, definitely. With this, I view it as come to everyone and everything with an open mind. Get to know the person, and that get to know where they're coming from. Listen to them, connect with them, and understand them. So,
Get to know people.
Yeah,
because
just talk to
people over
people.
process, as you said. Yeah. And then when we build that, and our number one job is to build relationships, because that's how the world works. And it's authentic relationships. Remember, we don't want them to have that smell that some have when we know that, hey, this person's only kind of being nice to me so they'll get something, so I'll do something for them. We don't want to build those types of relationships whatsoever. And it starts with inclusion safety. I like to think of it like it's a garden, and inclusion safety is that first you're cultivating the garden so there's room for that growth into a high performing team. And if you don't cultivate that soil first, you're not going to grow anything that's of any worth. You'll probably get some weeds in there, and you'll get some dissent and all sorts of other negative emotions in that garden. So we want to cultivate that soil and really create that environment or that culture for growth. So because that's really what we're doing, right? We're with psychological safety and high standards, we're creating that culture of high performance. And that's very cool. So any last words before we jump off? Any closing remarks or thoughts that you want to share with the team? No? Okay. So let's do our tagline before we leave on 3. Are we ready? We haven't, just full disclosure, none of us We've done a lot of streams and none of us have gotten this on target yet. So this may be the first. And if it is the first, we get bragging rights.
Mhm.
So let's nail it. Okay, on 3. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3. This is what
this is
learning
what
feels
learning
like.
like.
We almost got it. We're getting closer. We're getting closer. All right. So thanks, everybody. And down below are some more specific ways where you can build inclusion safety as well in the carousel. So watch the short videos in there as well and have a fantastic week.